Welcome to Bible Tales. We're excited to share timeless Bible stories with you, full of faith and wisdom. If you enjoy our content, please like, comment, and subscribe to support us and stay connected. Thank you for being here. Happy listening. Jonah and the Whale, a story of mercy, obedience, and God's unfailing love. In a small town nestled near the shores of Israel, there lived a man named Jonah. He was a prophet, chosen by God to deliver messages to his people. Jonah knew God's voice, and he understood the weight of his calling. One day, God spoke to Jonah with a mission that would test his faith and obedience in ways he never imagined. "Jonah," God said, "go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me." Nineveh was a vast and powerful city, but it was also notorious for its evil ways. Jonah was horrified. Nineveh's people were not only wicked, but also enemies of Israel. Jonah couldn't comprehend why God would want to show them mercy. Fear and pride gripped his heart, and instead of obeying God, Jonah made a decision that would change his life. He fled, running from God. Jonah packed his belongings and hurried to the port city of Joppa. There, he found a ship bound for Tarshish, a distant place in the opposite direction of Nineveh. Jonah paid the fare and boarded the vessel, hoping to escape God's presence. As the ship sailed into open waters, Jonah felt a momentary sense of relief. He went below deck and fell into a deep sleep. But Jonah forgot one crucial truth. No one can run from God. The storm. Suddenly, a violent storm swept over the sea. The waves rose high, and the wind howled fiercely. The sailors, experienced and battle-hardened, were terrified. They cried out to their gods and threw cargo overboard to lighten the ship. Jonah, however, remained asleep in the belly of the ship. The captain, desperate and bewildered, shook Jonah awake. "How can you sleep at a time like this? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us, and we will not perish." The sailors, realizing the storm was not ordinary, cast lots to determine who was responsible for their plight. The lot fell on Jonah. They demanded answers. "I am a Hebrew," Jonah confessed, "and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. I am running away from him." The sailors were horrified. "What have you done?" they asked. The storm grew fiercer, and Jonah knew what had to be done. "Throw me into the sea," he said. "It is my fault that this great storm has come upon you. If you do this, the sea will calm." Reluctantly, the sailors obeyed. They prayed to Jonah's God for mercy and tossed Jonah overboard. Instantly, the sea grew calm. The great fish. As Jonah sank into the depths of the sea, he thought it was the end. But God, in his infinite mercy, had other plans. A giant fish, sent by God, swallowed Jonah whole. Inside the belly of the fish, Jonah found himself in total darkness, surrounded by the sounds of rushing water and the smell of the ocean's depths. For 3 days and 3 nights, Jonah remained in the fish. During this time, he prayed fervently. He acknowledged God's sovereignty and expressed deep remorse for his disobedience. "In my distress, I called to the Lord, and he answered me. From the depths of the grave, I called for help, and you listened to my cry. I will fulfill what I have vowed. Salvation comes from the Lord." Moved by Jonah's repentance, God commanded the fish to spit him out onto dry land. Jonah, drenched and humbled, knew what he had to do. A second chance. God spoke to Jonah again. "Go to Nineveh and proclaim the message I give you." This time, Jonah obeyed. He traveled to Nineveh, a journey that took several days. When he arrived, he walked through the city, declaring God's warning. 40 more days, and Nineveh will be overthrown. To Jonah's astonishment, the people of Nineveh believed him. From the king to the lowest servant, they repented. They fasted, wore sackcloth, and cried out to God for mercy. The king himself issued a decree, urging everyone to turn from their evil ways and violence. When God saw their genuine repentance, he relented. He did not bring the destruction he had threatened. Jonah's discontent and God's lesson. Instead of rejoicing, Jonah was angry. He had hoped for Nineveh's downfall. He felt that God's mercy was undeserved. "Isn't this what I said, Lord, when I was still at home? That is why I fled to Tarshish. I knew that you are a gracious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love." God responded with a gentle lesson. He caused a leafy plant to grow over Jonah, providing him shade and comfort. But the next day, God sent a worm to wither the plant, and Jonah was left exposed to the scorching sun. Jonah was angry about the plant's demise. God asked, "Is it right for you to be angry about the plant?" Jonah replied, "It is. I'm so angry I wish I were dead." God then said, "You are concerned about a plant, though you did not tend it or make it grow. Should I not be concerned about the great city of Nineveh, where more than 120,000 people cannot tell their right hand from their left?" God's unfailing love and mercy. Jonah's story is a powerful reminder of God's boundless love and mercy. Even when we disobey and run from him, God pursues us. He disciplines us not to punish but to restore. Just as Jonah was given a second chance, we too are offered countless opportunities to return to God. In our lives, we may find ourselves running from God's will, avoiding the difficult tasks he sets before us. Yet his love never falters. His arms are always open, ready to welcome us back. No matter how far we stray, God's mercy is greater. His grace is sufficient. Words of encouragement. If you feel like you made mistakes or strayed from God's path, remember Jonah's story. It's never too late to turn back. God's love is relentless, and his mercy is new every morning. Trust in his plan, and know that he will guide you back to where you need to be. God's compassion for you is unshakable, and his grace will always find you, even in the deepest of waters. God's message to Jonah about compassion, forgiveness, and second chances is one that resonates deeply with us today. Often, like Jonah, we find ourselves reluctant to embrace people we feel don't deserve kindness or grace. Yet, God's love knows no boundaries. His mercy extends not just to those we deem worthy, but to all who turn to him with sincere hearts. Linking Jonah's story to our lives. In our daily lives, we encounter situations that test our patience, compassion, and willingness to forgive. Perhaps someone has hurt you deeply, and forgiving them feels impossible. Or maybe you've been called to a task that seems overwhelming or unfair, much like Jonah felt about Nineveh. But Jonah's story reminds us that God's plans are greater than our understanding. Jonah's mission to Nineveh wasn't just about saving a city. It was about revealing God's heart. God cares deeply for all people, even those who seem lost beyond redemption. When we align ourselves with his will, we become instruments of his grace, bringing hope and transformation to those around us. God's love despite our flaws. What stands out most in Jonah's story is how God dealt with him. Even when Jonah disobeyed and fled, God didn't abandon him. Instead, he pursued Jonah with relentless love. The storm, the fish, and even the plant were all part of God's plan to teach Jonah about his character, his compassion and patience. This truth should encourage us. No matter how far we run or how many times we fail, God doesn't give up on us. He is a God of second chances, offering forgiveness and restoration when we turn back to him. A call to show compassion. Jonah struggled to accept God's mercy for the Ninevites, but God's message is clear. We are called to love others as he loves us. This includes showing compassion to those who are different from us or who have wronged us. It's a challenging call, but one that brings freedom and peace when we embrace it. Just as God showed mercy to Jonah and the people of Nineveh, he invites us to extend that same mercy to others. When we do, we become reflections of His love, bringing light into a world that desperately needs it. Words of encouragement. As you reflect on Jonah's story, remember that God's love for you is unchanging. He sees your struggles, your fears, and your doubts. And yet, He still chooses you. He calls you to rise above your circumstances, to trust His plan, and to walk in obedience. If you feel overwhelmed or unworthy, take heart. God's grace is sufficient. His strength is made perfect in weakness. No matter where you are or what you've done, God's arms are open wide, ready to embrace you with love and mercy. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Lamentations 3 verses 22 to 23. May you find peace in God's unfailing love and courage to follow Him wherever He leads. Let Jonah's journey remind you that God's mercy is limitless, and His plans for you are filled with hope and purpose.